How do you say a short K or short P or short T in Norwegian? Like a K, P, T. You will say that's impossible, right? It's always short. It's just one instance, so I cannot elongate it. I can elongate a vowel. I can say a or I can say ah, but how can I say a long k? Well, to understand this concept, we have to go a little bit back, and we need to understand one rule in Norwegian, and that is that the stressed syllable is always long. Now, what does that mean? Firstly, there are languages on this planet where every syllable has the same length. So the rhythm of the language is basically something like da 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 da. Every syllable has exactly the same length, and that's the case in Spanish, for example, or in French, or in Mandarin Chinese. The stress of the syllable so gets just this little push, like it's higher and it gets a bit more volume. This is how we stress a syllable in Spanish, for example. In English, it's not quite like that. English syllables, when they're stressed, they tend to be longer. So in English, I say it a little bit longer than all the other syllables in the sentence. But this is not a very strict rule. So for example, when I say my father, the fa is stressed and it's very long, but when I say my cousin, the k is short, right? It's still stressed. We go up a little bit with a melody, but the phrase my cousin is much shorter in total than the phrase my father. And in Norwegian, this never works. So in Norwegian, the stressed syllable is always long. Now, that's very easy when we have a long vowel, for example, and we would say something like bake. Yeah, so the vowel is long, easy, no problem. We can also elongate consonants in Norwegian. For example, we would say anna. Okay, we have a long N. Since we write the double N, the A before will be short, but the first syllable is stressed, so we just elongate the N. Anna, or alle, passe, svømme. Okay, so we can have a long N, we can have a long L, a long S, a long M. All of this is no problem at all. But how do we say a long K? So in the word takke, we want to have a long syllable, a long first syllable because it's stressed, but the A is short since we write the double K. And how do we say a long K then? Well, what we do is we have this tiny little break between tak and ka. Basically, we start saying the K, but before we release it, we wait a little bit. Takke. We don't say takke, we say takke. We do the same with lytte, hoppe. Yeah, so the stressed syllable, whenever you have these double consonants, has this tiny little break in order to elongate the p or the t or the k. That's a small thing, a small detail in the Norwegian language, but you should pay a little bit attention to that. So when you listen to sound recordings, for example, in my Norwegian course or in any other Norwegian course, make sure to hear where do you have like this tiny little break, because the stressed syllables in Norwegian always have the same length. So whether I say, for example, jeg går på skolen, or jeg går på bussen, or jeg går på kjøkkenet, the syllables that are stressed in these examples always have the same length.